Hello, everybody. Welcome to Kevin Plays Disc Golf. Today we have a playthrough and course review from the University of New Hampshire in Durham, New Hampshire. My name is Kevin, and I play disc golf. Filming on course for this video was done on August 15th, 2025. The current version of this course was redesigned in 2023. To get to the course from the main part of campus, head west on Main Street towards US Route 4. At the traffic circle just after the tennis courts, go 3/4 of the way around the traffic circle and exit towards the athletic field. After about 100 yards, there's a small gravel parking lot on the left behind Bremner Field. This is the closest parking lot to the hole 1T. If you are coming from US Route 4, head east on Main Street towards the main campus. After about 1/2 mile, when you get to the traffic circle, go 1/4 of the way around and look for the small gravel parking lot. I believe that the single biggest conflict of the property use is that the field that holes 1, 2, and 3 are in is used for parking for UNH home football games. Additionally, the field that holes 5, 6, and 7 go around is a student recreation field and may be in use at various times, but their use shouldn't cause any parking issues. I played this course in August, and though it had rained some the day before, the summer had been generally dry. It would not surprise me if there were wet spots and puddles in the fields, most likely around the basket at holes 3, 6, and 8, either during snowmelt season or after heavy rains. There is only one course configuration. I would treat trash as carry in, carry out, though there were a few trash cans around the fields. There was a porta potty near the start of the course, but it was locked when I played. I was unable to find any information about whether or not dogs are allowed, so post in the comments if you know for sure. I'll have my overall review of the course at the end of the video. Be sure to post your comments as to your thoughts of what looks fun and where you think the problem areas are. Now we'll get to the small gravel parking lot by Bremner Field.
All right, here we are at the University of New Hampshire. I don't know if this is the best place to park, but we are at the practice football field, and you can see the main football field in the background. I know I've got to be at least close because I can see a basket on top of that hill over there. And just to let you know where we are, we have a porta potty over there to start out with. We are by the Rotary on the north side of campus, and we took the path that kind of looks like it goes out into the middle of nowhere, and follow where UDisc says the course starts. After some searching, it looks like according to UDisc, the tee is basically directly across from that parking lot that I parked in, and I want to line up here. So there are no official tees here, so I'm just kind of saying start about here-ish. UDisc lists hole 1 is a 257-foot par 3 straight ahead. We can see the basket. It is just in front of and to the left of that small tree in the field across from the walkway. There is a little bit of a ravine here, which right now is completely dry. And the only other thing is I would treat anything paved as out of bounds, so we don't want to end up on the pavement. And that was not very good. That disc did not flip up, didn't come out of my hand quite right. All right, so the ravine is a bit moist, but overall not too bad. And it does appear that there are quite a few open holes here, so it's just more of making sure you get the distance right. So we'll see how I can do for my second shot. That'll work. Something else I'll point out is it appears, if I had to guess, I'd say this field was mowed about a week ago. So it's short and you're not going to lose anything in here, but it's deep enough where you're not going to get any skips or it's going to be real hard to roll anything in this grass. And drop in for 3. UDisc has the tee for hole 2 listed as just between the basket and the road over here. Again, I don't see anything obvious that would indicate any sort of tee sign or tee marker, so we'll just say right about here will work. U-discless hole 2 is a 349-foot par 3. It is uphill, though you cannot see the basket from the height that the camera is at here. It is just over the crest of the hill. You may actually be able to see the very top of it through the deeper weeds right in front of you, but if you're standing up, you can see most of the basket. Yeah, it's straight away field shot. Much better tee shot than my first one. My guess is that where the disc lost sight of it over the hill, it is just to the right of where I want to be, but still in a pretty good spot. Here we have about the same distance shot as last time, except on a hole that's 100 feet longer. And pretty much the same result. And putt for par. And we'll take the par 3 there. To get to the area where U-discless is the tee for hole 3, we turn left, go across the road. Just across the other side of this small gravel road, we will see a large rock. And then U-disc says the tee is just to the left of this large rock. So go up here. And we have the tee somewhere in this area here. U-discless hole 3 is a 397-foot par 3. Straight ahead, significantly downhill. I'm not sure how well you can pick up the basket on camera, but it is about halfway between the center of the tallest tree and the left edge of that tree. It's in that shaded area there. Hopefully I'll point it out a little bit better on camera. It is actually fairly easy to see here in person, easier to see than it likely will be on camera. Now, again, this is quite a bit downhill to justify the almost 400-foot length par 3. And help me out as well, I've got a bit of a tailwind, so this may very well be my longest shot of the day. Well, that is going to be the shortest shot for birdie I've had so far on this course. Well, I'm a little short and I'm a little right, and this kind of feels a little like deja vu. Well, I'm a little short and a little right, and this kind of feels like deja vu. Well, I'm a little short and a little right, and this kind of feels like deja vu. And that looks like another same shot for par. With this green, there's a solid 30 feet around in all directions around the basket before you get to any brush. And the brush is not particularly dense. If you go too far into the brush, there is a bit of a creek and river. Would be to the bushes that are to the left and behind from this picture, or on the right side as you're approaching from the tee. But again, it's kind of tough to get there. So see if I can make yet another par. Tried to bounce out, but it stayed in. Hooray! U-discless hole 4 is a 412-foot par 4. It's shown as a dogleg right. A couple things to note here. Because of where hole 5 is, I would consider anything that's in that thick grassy area on the right side out of bounds. So you have to go around and up the hill. The direction of the basket is the second gap in the trees from the left. So we can see 3 gaps, one where you can see the building, one a bit to the right of that, and then a third one that we can see the building through the gap there. The one that we can't really see the building through, that's the gap we want to go for where the basket is. But again, we do want to play this going from left to right. The second shot is likely to be significantly uphill. Part of the reason for that is that hole 5 comes down that pathway there. We'd also treat the soccer field out of bounds as well, but that shouldn't come into play here. We want to make sure we stay far to the left of that. So that got a good way out there. I'm going to have a bit of a longer second shot, but this is a par 4 that is a legit par 4. I would almost consider having a Mando out there, and really, unless you can throw 350 plus feet reliably in the air, you're not going to have any shot at eagle on this one. For our second shot, the gap that we want to hit, which is the same one we could see off the tee, is the first real high gap. We just want to end up in there. If we can plop the disc on top of this little island up there and get it to the edge, we have about a 40-foot putt. So it's possible birdie from there, even if we're not in the woods. So if we go over the bank here and down, we're not going to lose a disc, but it's going to make for a much more difficult next shot. That was the wrong gap, but I should be able to get up and down from there. Just a couple things to note here is, this gives you an idea of how thick the brush is on the backside. Again, it's actually not as thick as the first patch of brush, so I don't think you're going to lose a disc in here, but it's not going to be easy to find. And if we turn around and we go right over here, this is the gap I've been saying that you need to look for, and we can see in the shadows we have a clear shot to the basket from there. So that's where we want to end up. The area around the green has actually been cleaned out fairly well. There are a few scattered trees here and there, but once we make it past that initial wall, we can usually pick some sort of path to get close. I'm down that way, so I'm going to have a tough time picking a path, but we can see even in here, if we end up in the brush, it may not be an easy shot, but we're going to have some sort of shot to get close. Even though I'm a bit buried in the woods, I should be able to get it close enough for an easy par, even if I don't have a clear shot at birdie. No shot at birdie, but I'll take the drop in for 4. All right, to get from the basket of 4 to the tee for 5, I want to go back out here towards the field, kind of the same way we would have hoped to have come in. And we move over this way. Now, where before we came down the field here, we want to stay on top of this little berm here. And the tee for hole 5 is going to be somewhere right around here. All right, a good little marker for exactly where the tee pad is located for hole 5 is it's pretty much dead in line with what would be the first base side foul line, except on top of the crest of this hill. Now, the basket, though we can see it from here, it's going to be a little bit difficult to see on the video. It is at the edge of the woods, straight ahead. So from where we are now and from where they are, if we see the field hockey net, it is just above and to the left of the top left corner of the field hockey net. So I would treat the field as out of bounds, and anything in the brush on the right is out of bounds. This is a real tunnel shot that requires a lot of precision here. U-discless hole 5 is a 306-foot par 3, significantly downhill, straight ahead. Stay left. All right. One other thing to note here is it is very likely those nets are going to be moved at some point. I think I can see my disc from here, so I don't think it went all the way into the brush. I think it spiked in and stopped. Though part of the reason for considering this out of bounds is, aside from it being incredibly dense, there's also a culvert buried in there somewhere, so who knows what the footing is like or what's going on. So I also see those trees are poison oak, so we want to stay stay away from the poison oak as well. I did spike in. I would consider this inbounds because if we had strings up, this would be okay. Here's a better view of the basket straight ahead. Again, you can see how narrow of a gap it is. I'm about 40 feet to the right of here. My disc did stay in bounds when it spiked and stopped, so that's good. And we'll see if I can get close for a par putt. Well, I've got a long par putt. So another good marker that we have as far as where the basket is it's about 12 to 15 feet off the edge of the pavement from where the pavement line starts to curve to the left. And that is the first bogey of the round. From the basket of 5 to where UDisc has the tee for 6 listed, if we take a left and keep following along the outside paved path of the field, UDisc has the tee for hole 6 listed as being just in front of this first large light pole. There is a path that comes in, so I'm sort of treating the pole side of this junction as the tee. UDisc has hole 6 listed as a 460-foot par 4, dogleg right. The camera is currently left of where the tee should be. The tee is in the grass, so you should not be on the pavement here for your tee shot. But just for visibility, I have the camera here. I'll be teeing off from in line with the light pole. Basically, the deal is once you get past the light pole, then you're going to want to go right. It's really impossible to go too far long here or too far right. I would treat the field as out of bounds on the left, and really the only obstacle once we get past that second light pole is there's the scoreboard, which we may have to get around, but from there to the basket, it's open field. There we go, that'll work. Again, basically once we get out into where the sunshine hits past that second light pole, the field opens up a lot. Here we're about halfway between the second light pole and the scoreboard. And we can see that this field does just totally open out. Again, I sort of made it far enough right where I am past the scoreboard. So I'm gonna keep the camera in the shade a little bit because you get an overheat warning on that. The basket is in the middle of the field on the far corner. Again, here, that was a pretty good first shot. I've probably got under 200 to get to the basket from here. That was the right power, just too low. And POV for 4. All right, now to get from the basket of 6 to the tee for 7, we take a left and go over towards the woods. And UDisc has the tee for 7 listed as being somewhere over here-ish. We'll say right about here. UDisc has hole 7 listed as a 481-foot par 4. Straight ahead, the basket is, we can barely see it from here, but the second set of shrubs that are coming in from the field going from left to right, the right edge of that from here, if we follow that basically in line with the utility pole with the lights, the wooden one way off in the distance, not the metal one that's near us, that is the direct line that the basket is on. I would treat the field as out of bounds on the right. I would also treat these two left and right areas that are sort of marshy as out of bounds as well. Again, I think those are very dense, very thick, and possibly culvert water stuff in there as well. The brush off to the right is also very thick. So again, you may want to consider that out of bounds because the creek is behind over there as well. Because of all this and the wind, I'm going to go pretty conservative on my first shot. Hopefully just end up left in line with the set of bushes that are coming out from the right and short of the ones on the left. I think I'm pinched off a little bit by the fence there, but we'll see once I get up there. All right, looking at these shrubs a little bit more closely, they both come out from the right edge. They don't go from the left. And yeah, these are very dense. And you may find a disc in there, but it's going to be not fun if it goes more than a foot or two in. So I ended up way left, which happens to be the safer route. I'm completely pinched off by the field. So for my second shot, I'm basically just going to have to get around this corner. I don't know, maybe I'll try a forehand roller. Maybe we'll see if that works. Well, yes and no. It got around the corner a little bit and I'm on the edge of the brush, but it didn't go in, and I'm going to be throwing away from it on my next shot. Again, here we get a good look at the basket in the middle of the field to the right of the light pole. Nothing around it in any direction, so as long as I can get this close, we'll be okay. Again, this is my third shot, so it's a bit of a distance, but not too tough of a shot. Something I neglected to mention earlier is that these bushes here, these are all pricker bushes, so pokey stabby bad. So that's more reason to consider this out of bounds. So as ugly as that shot looked, it did stay in bounds barely, so it does widen out here a little bit, and now I'm close enough for my fourth shot where I should be able to throw backhand and putter, and the brush is less. So we'll see how this works out for my unlikely birdie from here. From the ultimate disc golf cliche, that would have been really, really good if it didn't hit the tree. It's still pretty good even though it did hit the tree. And bogey putt. And bogey 5, not too disappointing on that hole. To get from the basket of 7 to the tee for 8, if we continue around the field, past the light pole, and continue on a little bit further here. Now, instead of following the paved path to the left, if we go straight towards this other field, and we go just to the other side of this fence, we have the tee for hole 9 is going to be right about here by the entrance to the fence. U-discless hole 8 is a 370-foot par 3, straight ahead. Again, we want to may want to think about considering these bushes on the right out of bounds because they do get very thick very quickly, and there's plenty of room to the left. There's no reason to not be safe out to the left here. The basket is about halfway between that house in the distance and the shrubs on the left side. Again, it looks like there's plenty of space around it, so the idea here is just be safe left off the tee and we should be fine. That's a good ways out there. I guess the basket is closer to the brush on the right side than I thought it was, and it's a little bit closer behind. The good news is that there is an old baseball fence behind it, so I would sort of treat that as inbounds, and if you go long, you're going to bounce off the fence. So that fence is not something you're going to go through, and from this distance, you shouldn't go over it either. I did see groundhog running around near the brush on the right side of that shed. So if you see something running around, it's a nice fat little groundhog there. Well, I'll take that as a good run from there. And par putt from here. All right, we'll take our 4 there. To get from the basket of 8 to where UDisc has the tee for 9 listed, we should go over, and they have it listed on the right side next to this house. I would suggest playing on the left side, only because it reduces the possibility of being hit by somebody else playing. Here, again, it's not going to make that big of a difference, but just somewhere over here I think is going to be the better option. UDisc has hole 9 listed as a 587-foot par 4. It is significantly uphill. We can see the basket from the tee, but it is difficult to spot. We see the small green tuft of grass that has the utility pole way off in the distance on the other side of the hill to its right. About that same distance to the left, we can see the basket for hole 9 up there. So it is, again, significantly uphill. I would play the road out of bounds, and I would play the upper field out of bounds as well. So just to add a little bit more difficulty. Again, this is going to play a lot longer because it is significantly uphill. And that's pretty good for what my arm feels right now. All right, here we are a little bit closer. One other possibility, and this may or may not be intended, is you could play left mando of this utility pole with the lights on it. How the lines are drawn on UDisc has you going basically right through where that trailer is, and I don't really think that's a good idea. From where I am, makes more sense for me to play to go left of that pole anyway. And from here, we can see the basket. If we look off in the distance, we can see the small pole that has the T-shaped top on it. The basket is on the left edge of that from what we can see from here. So I'm not out of the possibility of getting up on top of that hill on my second shot. Made it around the pole, avoided the lines, and made it across the road. I spiked into the hill on the other side of the road, so I'm about 4 feet clear, but it would have gone a lot further had there not been a hill there. So let's see what I can do here for my third shot. I definitely played that safer to be right from where I was. And here's my long par putt. This is makeable, but probably 35 feet. Well, 5 on that hole, not too bad. I will take that. All right, to get from hole 9 to the parking lot, if we turn to our left, we can see that is the parking lot that we started out at. So if we want to play another 9 holes, we can cross the road and start somewhere over there for the first tee. That is also a small parking lot, so another parking option is if you go a little bit further down the road, and if that gate is open, there's a much larger parking area down there for the student rec field.
There were no active upgrades that I saw at the time of filming. The fields do all appear to be mowed relatively frequently, so though the grass was a bit thick at the time I played, reducing the effectiveness of rollers or skip shots, I never had any concerns about finding a disc in the middle of one of the fields. The thumbnail photo is my approach shot for hole 3. I feel that this gives a good indication of what this course is about. Except for holes 4 and 5, all of the baskets are wide open, but there is danger lurking if you go too far off target, in this case long. My favorite hole was hole 4. Though there is a bit of danger losing a disc in the weeds right of the tee on the first throw, it does a superb job of using the elevation. The pin placement in the woods is excellent, rewarding a good second shot without being overly punishing if you go into the woods too early or too late. My least favorite hole is either hole 2, being a straight open shot across a relatively flat field, or hole 7 due to the high danger of losing a disc. Hole 2 could be improved by turning it into a par 4 and moving the basket back into the trees at the back of the field that could at least make the green a bit more interesting. Hole 7 is a rare case where I would do the opposite, moving the tee forwards, changing it to a par 3, and requiring a shorter shot to clear the disc-eating weeds. The first and last holes are critical for introducing the course and leaving the last impression at the end of the round. Hole 1 is a good warm-up hole, a mostly open 257-foot par 3 that prepares you for a lot of what to come on the course, including a lot of wandering around trying to figure out exactly where the tee is supposed to be. Hole 9 is a good way to end the round, though you do have to be careful of traffic on your second shot. The road that you have to clear is not busy, but there is more traffic than none on the road, and there is a non-zero chance of a disc that stops in the road being run over by a car. This is not ideal. If you ignore the road issue, though, it is a solid hole to end the round on, and leaves me with an impression of exactly what most of this course is about. It is one of the better holes on the course. Following this course would not have been possible without UDisc. There are no markings for the hole starting locations in any fashion, there are no signs, and there are no hole numbers on the baskets. Without UDisc, playing this course for the first time without anyone to show you where to go would be nearly impossible after the first 3 holes. Playing holes 4, 5, and 6 blind without any references of where to go would have been difficult at best, and for hole 4, I still had to walk from the tee to within about 40 feet of the basket to have any idea of where I wanted to go for the tee shot, even with UDisc. Navigating this course is like when Squidward travels to Future World. At first it seems great, however, after a very brief period, you realize that you are all alone, have nowhere to go, and then eventually sort of find a way out in a completely unexpected manner that you never would have thought of. This is one of the worst courses for navigation that I have ever played, and adding tee signs and tee pads would significantly improve the overall enjoyment of playing this course. This course is a mixed bag for disc safety. There are several places where you can potentially lose a disc due to the density of the brush, weeds, poison oak, and thorn bushes. The most obvious of these is the long grass that the water drainage goes through between holes 4 and 5, but it is equally bad at hole 7 in the middle of the fairway. Add in that not too far behind the dense tree line on holes 3, 5, 7, and 8, there is a river that is very difficult to get to due to the brush, and a disc that looks like it didn't go in very far may be either lost or unretrievable. As a result of this, I played holes 4, 7, and 8 away from the danger more than I otherwise would have if not for the disc loss potential. The baskets were fine. I believe they are all DGA Mach 5 baskets, though painting them in a color that makes them easier to see would be a benefit on a few holes. As is, they do show up better in person than they do on camera, but there are still a few places where a brighter color would make them easier to see. The tee pads and signs are non-existent. The lack of these are the biggest problem that I have with the course, and it makes this course unplayable for a first-time solo playthrough without UDisc or a guide. Adding tee pads and signs sounds like a great project for a student group to get involved with, and would likely result in more student interest in disc golf. This course does appear to be targeted towards UNH students and does a fairly good job of that target audience. Having spent many hours playing catch with frisbees on the Thompson Hall lawn when I went to UNH, and having started playing disc golf while I was attending UNH, I absolutely would have played this course often, being within walking distance of the main campus and still being moderately fun to play. It is not a beginner course, with hole 1 being the only hole shorter than 300 feet, but for introducing college-age people who can throw a frisbee a good distance, this is a good place to start. My overall course rating is that if you have UDisc and want to play a course that is much more open than most of the other courses in New England, I would be willing to drive 45 minutes out of my way to play this course for the first time, and 30 minutes to play this course again, knowing where you're supposed to go and knowing where the tees are supposed to be from having played it before. There are no other courses that I have played that are within a 30-minute drive of UNH that are open courses, and though there are 2 other courses within 15 miles that are objectively better, those being Bellamy Park and Squamish. This one is generally much more open and allows for more open max distance throws in 9 holes than either of those courses do in 18 holes. There is space here, and this is a good base for an 18-hole course if there is enough interest from the UNH student body. I'm not sure how much UNH would allow the course to go into College Woods, but even if it didn't, there is still room going towards Mast Road and the PBS station for a few holes, and there's enough room around the other athletic fields for a full 18. If you go to UNH and want to see this course improved, get a sports club going or encourage your friends to take LAP 511 Disc Golf, which is a 2-credit course meeting in Term 4 of 2026. I certainly would have taken it had it been offered when I went there. Like, share, and subscribe. Check out my other video linked here or the playlist of my disc golf courses of New Hampshire linked in the description. Give me a U. U! Give me an N. N! Give me an H. H! What does that spell? Ooh!